What does an AI powered browser actually look like? We've been hearing about this for a while, and Perplexity is, I don't know if they're exactly first out of the gate. There may be other startups. I'm sure there are. I don't mean any disrespect to them, but Perplexity, by the way, Jaeden, Perplexity, gotta love them. But what are they doing? I mean, they're everywhere. They're trying to do absolutely everything. And the only thing I can imagine is they're just trying to build the best tech possible for an acquisition. But maybe I'm wrong because they're trying to be Google and everything. Anyway, they're doing just fine. But the interesting thing is that they released Comet, and their demo that I saw online was kind of okay, I guess. But the interesting stuff that I was seeing was how people were using it. So always take it with a grain of salt when early users get access to it, unless they're super reputable early users, because they're going to show their best use cases and all that kind of stuff. But it is interesting. So to kind of think about like what that looks like, it's supposed to feel more like you get on there and it's a conversation rather than just a bunch of clicking around. And I think we're so used to a browser that I think this is going to take a long time for people to kind of get used to. So it has this conversation, the Comet I'm talking about right now,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing everybody will be kind of the same. It'll be sort of like you interact with it through like chat, like natural language queries, right? Sort of like you're
Hmm.
just asking questions. It's doing sort of like the searching for you. What I've also seen in people, again, grain of salt, I have not tested this myself, but people are saying like, yeah, it's actually pretty powerful, kind of like agentic AI built into this. Like, so instead of going to this website and going to this website, you actually just sort of talk to your browser and it starts doing this. It also has like the integrated assistant, but that's kind of, I mean, everybody kind of has that now, right? I mean, like,
Hmm.
Gemini should be by the side, Copilot. Anyway, these are some of the big things. Jaeden, I don't know if you've seen about this, and I think OpenAI, by the way, should be launching something pretty soon. But I think one of the big questions that I have is, what is that going to feel like? What's that going to look like? I don't know. What have you seen in this
Yeah.
space?
So, I mean, overall, I'm actually really excited about this concept. You're right. They're not the first people. I think, like, Copilot's kind of trying to do some different things where they're putting like a model in the browser and the sidebar. And the other thing I'll say is that you only get access to Comet if you're on their $200 a month tier, which, not everybody wants to be paying $200 a month for it. Is it useful? I would actually say yes. So that's my argument, is that this is actually quite useful and very interesting. I was looking at some of the demos and use cases. And at first I was kind of like, oh, like, why do you need like a little chat thing that you're chatting with? And like some of the examples they were giving was just like, help me like respond to emails. It's like, respond to this email and say XYZ. It's like, okay, well, Gmail already has that built in. You know what I mean? So like a lot of tools already
Yeah.
have these AI things built in. So some of their demos, I'm like, that's not super useful. But the one thing that I thought was actually useful and got my brain spinning a lot, they went to a Reddit thread. It was like an AMA with the Perplexity, co-founder, and they on the side they're like, find a YouTube video where he talks about, or it said like, find the most commonly asked questions in this thread, right? And Reddit threads, those are like 1,000 questions long, so it's like, oh, here's the 5 most commonly talked about things, and it's like, okay, find like a YouTube video about that thing, and it like pulls it up. It all of a sudden got me thinking about a browser a little bit different. We're so used to just like Google Chrome, which, by the way, I think there are some tools slightly like this,
Right.
that are just Chrome plugins, right? That kind of are like AI embedded in, and you can talk to it and it'll answer questions. But this isn't just answering questions, and that's what I thought was cool. It's actually making actions on your behalf. So when you say like, based off of this web page, tell me this data. Based off of this data, go find me a video. Like it's opening things up. It's opening new tabs, and it's like clicking on things and finding new videos and doing stuff. So to me, this is actually kind of useful. I feel like it's like a stepping stone into what we're going to be doing with agents, but I think it's important to own the browser and able to do in order to do this. So the reason why Perplexity is investing so heavily in building out like a full browser, it's like, well, why do you need a browser? And apparently OpenAI is also doing it. So it's like, why are these big AI companies building their own, browsers? And it's because you need a piece of software to be able to, for agents to be able to control. So I think Claude, they kind of went with like a downloadable software. If you want Claude, what is the Claude agent called? I can't even remember the name of it.
Computer use, right?
Computer use. Yeah, if you want Claude computer use, you have to download something onto your computer. So so it's not technically a browser, but it's like an agent. So I mean, call it an agent, call it a browser, whatever. What's the difference? You might as well just call this thing a browser and let people also search for their websites on it, and just take a little bit of or a little bit of market share away from Google, I think is the idea here. But
Yeah.
you need something on the computer that actually can make actions. And so that's what I'm kind of starting to be like, okay, this is more than just a browser. It's really kind of like your query spot for agents. And I hate it when people say the word agents and they're not agents. I'm
Hmm.
not going to call out any big companies that do this, but there are big companies and they drive me crazy when they're like, we're building agents that do blah, blah. It's like, you're not building an agent. It's a freaking LLM like everyone else is. Like, I like
Yeah.
it that you can ask it to do something. It goes to the website. It clicks on the website. It pulls the thing up. It completes an action for you. That is very useful. That's an agent to me. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing Perplexity do here.
Yeah, it's funny, Jade. Literally, as we're talking, and I apologize if anybody like heard that ding coming through on my computer. So on our company's AI mindset, we have our whole team, and Robert Haslam is a guy I talk about a lot. He's our creative strategist, and we're just one of the smartest guys. Also, if you're ever on my LinkedIn and you sort of see these like cool images that we make and infographics, that's all Robert. But he's also just like one of the smartest people I know on generative AI, just exploring all that kind of stuff. And literally, as we were talking, Jaden, he popped up a text, and I'm just going to read this to you because it's hilarious. And he sent a photo of our website, which is AI Mindset, and he says, "Thanks, Perplexity browser." And I just open it up just to sort of like look at what he's doing, and it's literally saying, "Hey, is this site well designed?" And he's like talking to it as if it's sort of like an assistant right there, and because it's native to it, it's giving all these areas for improvement on the site and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, hey man, like, what are you doing right now? I'm literally on the podcast like right now. He's like, oh, I'm still trying, I literally only got access to it, still trying to work out how to log into my Perplexity account because it came through a couple minutes ago. Anyway, point being that people who are like just like ready to experiment, this is going to come very naturally. It's sort of like how ChatGPT came very quickly to the kind of like the intellectually curious, but why we see, and this is why we're in business at AI Mindset, right? Like why we're able to work with all these big companies and drive adoption. Because if you're already using ChatGPT 30 times a day, you're good. But I'm telling you right now that most people around the world are not. They're still like stuck. That's why it's this behavioral transformation, right? But the point is that when you have somebody who's just diving in, like a Robert, who's just like looking at this thing and being like, well, what can it do? I think there's going to be a subset of people who are going to get used to this AI browser very, very quickly. And a ton of people who are like, I don't see the difference. I'm still just like, it's still just a browser. But when you like really start to see how AI is natively built into this is where I think Perplexity is a phenomenal job at leading the way. And yeah, will they get eclipsed? Yeah, because they don't have the market share. But by God, like if you take like 1% from Google, I mean, you're talking millions, and Perplexities, I don't know what they're valued at right now, but it's a multi-billions. And so anyway, huge kudos to them doing this. And I'm curious to see what OpenAI will do with this. But more importantly, maybe how will they get people using the browser differently? Like what happens when you open a browser like this and you start to see something different? But I know that on X, people are doing some fun experimentation on it.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up a couple interesting things people are doing on X. Some people are saying that this is more useful than ChatGPT Operator, which I thought was interesting.
Okay.
Olivia Moore, who, if you don't follow her already, she's a partner at A16Z and shares all sorts of awesome
Oh
stuff in
yeah,
the
I saw her
space.
stuff. That
So
was really cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, definitely give her a follow. Um, so she said, first text of Perplexity's new agent browser, Comet. She said Comet authenticates into your account's email, calendar, and it takes action on your behalf. It pulled up a list of all of her so she asked it to pull up a list of all of her email newsletters and unsubscribe from all the ones that
Yeah.
she asked it to, so it can actually go and do that. That's so useful. That it's like ChatGPT Operator, except it's like a little bit more hands-on, but it's doing all this manual, menial stuff that you don't want to do. She said a couple of her other favorite use cases. She checked into an upcoming flight, which, first of all, pet peeve, and I promise I'll be done with my pet peeves, but I hate it on all of the demos when people are like, our latest agent, it can like go and book flights for you. I'm
Book a
like,
flight. Book a flight. That's it.
no one is trusting it to go book your stinking flight. And everyone says the exact same thing in every single demo. So go find a
So
new
right.
use case. Otherwise, I just think you're an automated travel agent. Anyways,
So right.
so checking into your flight, I give that a pass as an interesting thing because she said it fills in the confirmation code. It can go pull the confirmation code out of the email, fill it in, fill in the last name, et cetera, et cetera. Honestly, I think that's useful enough if you just give it all of the information about yourself. And it's like anytime you get a form that's like, fill in all your info. I'm like, Perplexity, please do this. I don't really want to.
No,
That's
sure.
kind of cool. She said it looked through her emails for an unpaid bill in her inbox. It filtered her LinkedIn requests by who she should actually accept. She said it's a really tough grader on that, which I thought was hilarious. Anyways, I think this is very useful. It's pretty much like I think it's their response to ChatGPT Operator or something else, but it's going and actually accomplishing tasks for you. It's open. It's an actual browser. That's the one thing I don't like about ChatGPT Operator, because I've paid for it multiple times. I've done a lot of projects with it, but it feels very much like you give it a task and you're watching through like a window as it does something, and you kind of have to like
Yes, yes.
manually like take over and then like change it if something's going haywire or whatever. Whereas this, it's just like it's on your browser, it's doing it. Like it's not a window you're looking through. You're like in the room with it. So to me, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing. And this is where I'm so curious as sort of like how it will feel to people. Do you know what I mean? Like I think
Hmm.
ChatGPT, when people first got it, and it's even now, Jaden, this is the biggest problem, that people still treat it like Google. And I don't mean that they think it's a search engine. It's not. It's more, and this is sort of like part of how we teach kind of fundamentally to companies. It's like, how you treat a search engine is sort of like you give it a command and you get a response and then you walk away. And I think it'll take people really, because we've been using browsers for 25 years now. I'm just wondering how people will really adapt to this enough they'll be able to understand these things that Olivia Moore was doing. Like, will they intuitively start to understand that it can do this? Because that's the problem with large language models. There's no real instruction book to it. It's not like you can do all these things, because it can kind of do everything. I don't mean every, but it can do almost anything. So my big question is, what is this going to look like when people actually get their hands on it? I think we're going to see a year of demos. Do you know what I mean? Like before people
Yeah.
actually sort of like start to figure out what a AI browser actually is. I think there's going to be a leading edge to it. And I think everybody else will take forever to catch up on this, but I'm really excited to start testing this out myself.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, kudos to the Perplexity team. They're doing everything, and I think they're doing a lot quite well. So that's very awesome. And kudos to Connor for being like the OG Perplexity evangelist. He definitely should have had a coupon code at this point for all of us, for all the millions of people he's recommended to try it. But thanks so much, everyone, for tuning into the podcast today. We really appreciate it. The number one thing, if you got any value out of this podcast, that you could do to say thank you would be to leave us a rating and review. I know it's kind of annoying because like whenever people ask me to leave a comment or rating and review, I typically would say no. Now that I have been running this podcast for a while, I'm like, every time I hear it, I'm like, okay, I got to do it because I ask people all the time. But really, it does mean a lot, and it actually helps out our podcast get found on Spotify and on Apple and stuff. They help the algorithms and the rankings by the reviews. So it helps more people find us. That's the number one thing you could do to say thank you. But thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we will catch you in the next episode.